Hi, I'm Lisa Singer. I am the Senior Director of Event Programming at MediaPost, and this is Brand Insider BTS, where I get to pull back the curtain on some of the most influential women brand marketers today. And with me is Ruthie McCombs. She is the founder of Overnight Beauty. Hey, Ruthie.
Hey Lisa, how are you?
I'm good. It's so great to see you again since the last time we were hanging out in Charleston for the D2C Summit.
Great time. So good to see you as well.
Yeah, no, and I still have my candle, which I like a lot. The smell is awesome. So
Love to
thank
hear
you.
that.
I
Absolutely.
love getting my swag. That's
Yes,
awesome.
absolutely.
Very nice swag. But so I mean, as I said, you're founder of Overnight Beauty, which is amazing. And I know that, really when you started it, it was because you were sort of running yourself ragged and you sort of were burnt out, kind of. But
Yes.
talk about before that, like talk about when you even first got started, and was a beauty brand on your radar? Like, what were you thinking when you're graduating, and what you were hoping to do, or what you were envisioning for your career, and the path that brought you to be the founder of this beauty brand?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I can't say that I had aspirations to have a beauty brand. I studied finance and marketing in undergrad, and I had planned to go into finance. I have two older brothers that work in banking as well. So, I kind of got to know the industry through them and took a number of internships. I mean, prior to that, I was heavily interested in marketing and advertising, and one of my majors was marketing. But I felt like, can I really make money doing those things, right? Like sometimes you're just conditioned to think that the more creative spaces won't support the living that you hope to make, right? Um, but over time, I'd always been interested in beauty, but more as a hobby. And, so really over time, I started to consider it and consider just having, first, I think entrepreneurship was the first thing, was the
Mhm.
first consideration. And then later on, beauty and wellness came into focus for me. Um, but I would say it really was, the industry that I chose that helped me get to this point, because, I was working really long hours. I, wasn't really feeling creative at work.
What was the industry? Start us there. Where did you sort of start your career, and then where did you get burnt out? Like talk about that. Give us your story.
Absolutely. So I've worked in finance my entire career. I've worked between what we consider commercial banking and corporate banking. I'm currently a corporate banker, and I would say the burnout started immediately. I mean, as an analyst coming out of college, I was working a lot of hours, and sometimes that included, late nights, but also weekends as well. Um, and then even my like personal activities were burning me out as well, right? I wasn't doing anything restorative. I wasn't mindful at the time. All these things that I hold dear now, I didn't really know about and wasn't really focused on when I first started my career. So I was burning the candle at both ends, and I started to very early on reap the not the benefits, but the some of the
Repercussions.
drawbacks and the repercussions of having, both a hectic work life and a hectic personal life. Um, so over the years, I started to create more rituals, but we'll get to that. But the burnout continued for a long time, and a long time before I really started to address it. And I think moving from New York to LA, I spent the last 7 years in LA. It really taught me to be more focused on my health, focused on balance. And even though I'm still working in, corporate banking, I think I've taken cues from that environment and helped me kind of manage and balance, my corporate job much better.
Yeah. Well, and I think, I mean, even when you're talking about, as you said, you say your job in finance, that's obviously, as a business owner, I'm sure that comes in play. That entrepreneurial spirit is almost not usually seen in that person who is in finance per se. Although I would, I guess I could probably be there'll probably be a lot of people who could disagree with that or show me proof that that isn't necessarily the case. But I don't think it's always like when you go into finance. I used to remember in terms of just, I had a lot of friends who went into finance and it was very right out of college. They had the headhunters, they knew where to send them, they knew where to go. But as you said, the creative side, it's not that it's not going to make you money, but it's not that cut and dry in terms of how you get your job and where you go, and you have to be a little bit more creative in that. And but as you crossed over, was it because you kind of came to that realization where you were burnt out and you were figuring out what you needed to do? Where did the beauty come into play? Like, where did overnight beauty then say, okay, this is more than just maybe a side thing that you might have been doing, and now it's become a business?
Well, the burnout led me to collapse at work, which was awful. I probably a month prior to collapsing at work, I was just experiencing nausea every morning that I woke up. And for whatever reason, I ignored it and just would not ignored it, but I pushed it out of the way of my head. Like I just pushed forward. I've been conditioned for a very long time to kind of do the hard things and just manage through adversity. So I would drink tea or just, do whatever I could to kind of settle the nausea and then get back to work. At the time, there was a lot of transition within my organization. Senior leadership was being reorganized. Our direction and focus as a company was being reorganized. So there was just a lot of uncertainty, a lot of challenges that I was facing on a day-to-day basis. And all these things led me to become ill. I never thought that the root cause of all of that could be stress and anxiety, but it turned out it was. I went to the hospital, they ran a battery of tests, they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And I had one doctor who sent me to a series of specialists to make sure that, we kind of checked everything. And each of the specialists asked me about my sleep, every single one of them. And they wanted to know how much I was sleeping every night, the quality of my sleep. And I think we often, or I at least often thought about sleep in terms of numbers, right? I'm a numbers girl. And so I would say, well, yeah, I'm getting, 7-8 hours of sleep every night, which is great. However, I was running numbers in my head and having like very vivid dreams and waking up in the middle of the night. And so I had this racing brain. And I wasn't getting very good sleep quality. Right. Simultaneous to all of these health issues, I was also covering and working with beauty brands and a lot of companies in the beauty industry as a corporate banker. Oh. So I was learning the business from the numbers side. And I was going to industry events and starting to network and make contacts and really just enjoyed I think the difference in the industry and, the environment change really sparked my interest. It was totally different from, the blue and gray suits that I was used to, the male dominated industry. And so it was nice to see a lot of like female entrepreneurs, a lot of female founders and owners. It was nice to see people more relaxed and a little bit more laid back. And so my interest definitely was piqued there. And then marrying that with what was a challenge in my life, I started to create rituals, essentially. A lot of what I was hearing at these events, a lot of what I was seeing in the industry, I started to apply to myself and try to create a more balanced lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And that really is the foundation of how Overnight Beauty started.
Yeah. So obviously even though you were a numbers girl, you must have had that entrepreneurial spirit within you. So, I mean, I guess for someone starting out and so, okay, you don't want them to follow the path of, collapse and
please don't.
Don't do that. But do you feel that mix, and you said it has helped you having that finance background, but not every entrepreneur does. Although, do you find that the meshing of the two worlds has made it easier? Like, so if someone came to you for advice, someone just, getting out of school, or how would you advise them to get to where you are today?
Yeah, I would definitely, I think I always advise younger people to create core competencies that will be useful in the industry that they want to be in. I think we're conditioned to think about, the just like 20 years down the line of where we want to be in that dream job, but we rarely think about the foundation and what we need to lay first before we get there. For me, I think coming from the background that I have in finance, I have to do a lot of presentations. I have to speak a lot. I have to feel confident in, large rooms with people that in my role specifically, I have to feel very comfortable with people who are very senior, speaking to CFOs of companies, right? So I feel like working on my communication skills, I think that working on being confident, right? Some of those really foundational skills has helped me. And then I think that building those core competencies, and people, like when people look at me and know that I work in finance, but I'm an entrepreneur, I think they feel comfortable with me as an entrepreneur because of that background. And so that's why I always stress to people, like, create those core competencies, learn like hard skills that you can transfer throughout your life.
Yeah, it's more about checking off. And I hate saying checking off because that's something women do. I've had this discussion with many of the other women marketers, but more the skill sets, getting those skills aligned and not defining yourself through a title or an industry, even for that matter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's ideal if you want to be an entrepreneur. And then once you cross over into entrepreneurship, really just be ready to learn a lot more. Every day you're learning and you're growing in skills. A lot of times you have to rely on other people who know better than you, but you have to be dangerous enough and educated enough to, kind of watch over them and monitor them, direct them, so you definitely, as an entrepreneur, you need those foundational skills, but you will always be learning new skills every single day.
I'm curious, and it may be the collapsing, because that sure was a very huge challenge that you've had to overcome. But getting past that, and once you determine that you are launching Overnight Beauty, has there been a challenge or an impasse where you were almost like, okay, this isn't going to happen, and then but obviously you pushed through, and here you are?
Well, I launched during COVID, so that felt like there were different signs along the way that I was receiving as if I was maybe going the wrong way, the wrong path, and that I should stop. So launching during COVID meant that everything became way more challenging, trying to put my packaging together from my living room and having, just taking Zoom calls to try to talk to vendors. It really did lengthen the process of, starting up, but it also just made everything just way more difficult. It felt like at the time. Looking back on it, I could see some of that actually was really ideal, right? Working from home 24/7, having some flexibility, more flexibility in my job than I ever had, right? Those things were ideal. But at the time, it felt like the world was kind of imploding on all of us. I think we all kind of felt that way. We didn't know there was just so much uncertainty. But learning to manage and start the business through that has really served me well going forward, because now I feel like I'm dealing with uncertainty and adversity when it comes to the business with a lot more grace.
It's not a pandemic.
Yes, it's not. It could be.
Everything kind of takes a little, comes down here a little bit on that scale.
Absolutely.
I'm curious because, you come across, I met you, and obviously right away we were connecting and talking, but is there something when people first meet you, maybe that they get wrong about you, or, think one way and it's just not who you are?
Well, I'm really direct. So, and I think maybe as a New Yorker, that's just who we are. And I hate to play into the stereotypes, but I'm extremely direct. I actually think I was raised like being direct and honest and forthcoming is like positive. But I've learned to temper that somewhat and to find more graceful, friendlier ways to communicate. And I think, I had to learn that moving into the beauty space, finding that rhythm in terms of the new partnerships that I was dealing with, um, moving into a space of managing people, right, for your business. This is now your baby, and you can be a little bit, just, I don't know, overprotective. And so learning to be much more, I think, calm and balanced and measured with my communication as it relates to something that I'm so hypersensitive about, so committed to, has been something that I've been working on. But yeah, that directness, I think, is something that has caused some miscommunication in the past.
Yeah, well, and I do think it is an East Coast, West Coast. I mean, I'm East Coast and I've lived in California a number of years, and I fully acknowledge that was something that I had to adjust to and probably didn't do it so well in the sense, you know, even the just get, like you need there are certain times when it's, you know, schmoozing and enjoying and talking. And then there are times just like you just want it done, you
Let's
just
do
gotta
it.
do it. And
Yeah,
I think I'm good when it comes to work and asking for things, although I'm sure there are moments when being in news, when you're on a deadline, I'm sure then sometimes I came across a little gruff,
I'm
but
sure.
I do think it is an East Coast, West Coast thing, and the sarcasm too. I don't think that necessarily
It doesn't translate, yeah. But I think, actually, I'm very mindful to use my communication to inspire people. Um, a lot of times we don't know what insecurities or what challenges other people are facing, and just a kind word or a softer tone can really, improve the relationship. And so I do go further out of my way to do that, because relationships as an entrepreneur are paramount. Like, that's very important. You don't want to alienate people because you said the wrong thing or you said it the wrong way, especially saying it the wrong way, because if that wasn't your intention, there's nothing worse.
yeah. No, what do you think that is that how you maybe motivate? Like, so when you as you said, this is your baby and you have people working for you, but at the same point, you know, you want to be a little hands off, like and that is something I think some of the most successful business people know what they do well and they'll know what they don't do well, and then you delegate it. But
Right.
how do you motivate your team? Is it with those kind words, or is there something else? Is there anything that you find, and maybe how you motivate yourself as well?
Yeah, so actually the key was in how I manage myself. So I think sometimes if you if you look inside, you will actually see what you're projecting out. And so I noticed that I'm pretty critical of my own self. And so those were the same things that I was giving off to other people. I think you can give criticism, but it doesn't have to be, no one has to leave you feeling defeated after you've given them criticism. And that's why I said I prefer to inspire, because we all have things that we're trying to improve or that we should improve, but that doesn't mean that we're not doing a good job. So I actually always try to communicate, compliments, always try to motivate people to, see what they're doing well, and then kind of follow up with, some suggestions on potential improvements. Yeah.
And I do think it's as long as it's constructive. And but I do agree. I think temper it with, oh, I love that or this is great, or whatever it is. But perhaps, I think if you do this, you might find some more success. And
Mhm.
I think that most people, from me myself, as long as it's constructive, and I'm very open to that. And I think that most people are. It's when you're not, then you need to kind of look at yourself, and then I'm
Yeah.
sure you might deal with someone like that on occasion, but um that is definitely, as long as it's constructive, I feel like and it's not said in a negative, like completely negative way, but in a way of helpfulness.
Well, you think about it too, as an entrepreneur, sometimes I'm communicating to a vendor that I'm not necessarily pleased. And that's a whole other entity, a whole nother business, right? And this happened to me recently. And I basically told them, hey, I was so impressed with your services in the beginning. And, I really do want to continue working with you. And then I set expectations for that to continue. I think sometimes people appreciate if you give them that opportunity, right? I know I do. Don't just shut the door on me. Let me know, give me some feedback, and then allow me some time to improve.
Yeah, no, I love the way you actually did that, because I find I'm not good at the, you know, something where I feel like they might take it negatively or any, like, I'm a confrontation or however you want, like, even though that's not a confrontational tone and it shouldn't be a confrontational conversation, it's still like, those are the kind that I have to sort of really work myself up to. So, but I love the way you entered into that. So I think that was really, really smart.
Yeah, and it actually worked. They've been great ever since. So sometimes you have to say it.
Yep. No, that's awesome. What about in terms of, you mentioned a little bit at the top that you do rituals. Are there any rituals aside from, I know with overnight beauty, there's all these, rituals for sleeping, but we're going to go away from that, but just any Ruthie ritual that just like, whether it's, I mean, both in whether in your personal life or professionally, or maybe in the personal life, but then it makes you better professionally.
I meditate daily. So mindfulness is really the key to me keeping all of this together, honestly, both personally and professionally. Daily mindfulness has helped me kind of stay in a positive headspace, which really helps me work better, communicate better, just live better. Always looking for things to be grateful for, because there are so many challenges being an entrepreneur. Every single day, there's something that you have to maybe solve or figure out. And a lot of these things are newer challenges that you've never faced. And so it can feel daunting. And so that's how I start my day. And lately now I've actually started ending my day with mindfulness and also journaling as well. So I'm really big on creating like just a good headspace for myself to kind of manage my day-to-day challenges.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious because obviously that wasn't who you were.
No.
Back. We'll go back to the burnt out side, and so
Right.
you weren't meditating. So that wasn't who you were naturally, let's say. So how did you develop that kind of, skill? I mean, meditation is a skill, or or lifestyle, or however you want to term it. But you were this, what sounds like a type A personality, and now maybe there's some type A in there, but you've also embracing another side. How did you sort of make that transformation?
Interestingly enough, it's always been in my orbit. Like my mom was big on, she didn't necessarily call it meditation, but she'd always have this quiet morning, and her ritual included, tea, soft music, and low lighting. And so I kind of grew up watching that. I have an aunt that meditates daily, so it's always been around me. And but I think you're right. It wasn't until I kind of faced my own, adversities that I started to embrace it on a daily basis. But I think really learning that there's always going to be challenges, but there's always positive things to hold on to, and then creating a practice around making myself like aware of those positive things, right? It's easy. You listen to the news, you read, the paper, you read a book, you can get into a very negative headspace anywhere.
Yeah.
From in my case, you're at work and a deal is not going the way that you want it to go, or, maybe you're having some challenges with your new manager, whatever the case may be, any series of things. So it really, over time, I learned not to look for, when you're younger, you hope for brighter days that don't include the challenges. And then when you get older, you realize that's not realistic.
Yeah.
Instead, you have to create this headspace where you focus, or this mindset where you focus on the positive, and you almost manifest new positive uh, situations and outcomes for yourself.
Did you do the tea and quiet music in the morning, or you have
I'm
your own?
not, it's so funny because you're right. It's this battle between type A and wanting to be more mindful. So I actually have to wake up earlier so that I have the time to meditate. And then I meditate for 30 minutes. Yes, it's still I'm waking up at 5 a.m. to do this. So it's still kind of dark for the most part, or dim lighting. So I have that going. And then it's more of, I use an app, or I sit quietly and maybe listen to some sounds. So yeah, it's starting to, as much as I used to make fun of my mom growing up, it's starting to look exactly like her mornings.
Oh, okay, well, mom did well then.
You do better. Exactly.
Go by example, as opposed to what you say to them. It's more set the example.
Right, exactly.
I'm curious. So Overnight Beauty's motto is, "We believe sleep is your superpower."
Yes.
Okay, so aside from sleep, because we've learned that that is now helping you, but aside from sleep, what is your superpower?
I think that mindfulness has definitely become one of my superpowers. But beyond that, I think I have a tremendous amount of compassion, and I try to lead with that. So I I do look deeper than the surface, right? And I want to know people's stories and what they're going through, and use that to inform how I interact with them, right? And so I think that that's definitely one of my superpowers. If you've ever, I always, I think information, sometimes people feel uncomfortable sharing information, but I always try to use it to benefit our interaction and our relationship, so that, if there are some things that are triggers for you, I'm not, hitting those buttons and, and then on the flip side, if there are things that actually motivate you, and going back to inspiring people, just understanding people a little bit better helps you to do that, and enables you to be a more inspiring person.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, and it's about listening and really giving the opportunity to get to know someone. So, all right, getting to something a little bit more frivolous, your guilty obsession.
You're not going to believe this, but I think it's trivia.
Really?
So yeah, I really do like lightheartedness. And I do like, just the other day, a group of friends of mine were in town visiting, and we were kind of hanging out, and like just a normal interaction with our group into kind of a game on the spot.
Mhm.
It was actually a lot of fun, and my friends have dubbed me, the trivia queen. But I think it's a kind of laid back way to get to know each other. It adds, lightheartedness to conversation. So yeah, I like trivia.
Okay. Do you have what topics are your go-tos? Like in terms of movies or books or.
Yeah, so the game that I made up on the spot, and I don't think it's all that original, but it was kind of like we were asking each other questions, and it was like delving into our personality and seeing how much everyone else knew that person, how well, like,
Okay, so more about the people around you and the.
and going back to that, like wanting to know more, wanting to create more depth in the relationships. That's kind of my fun way to do that. Yeah.
Very cool. That sounds fun. If you have a good group of friends and you know each other, I think that would be really fun to do.
Oh, and it actually turns out certain things we didn't know about each other. So that was interesting as well.
Yeah. What is it? Kind of like I never, isn't that a game? Like
Never have I ever. Yeah, that's
I ever, and
definitely.
then you either drink or you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
That sounds fun. So, all right, just finally, I want to know what's plan B? Okay, so which basically is plan C for you, but no finance, overnight beauty, complete success, you sell it to some huge corporation and now you're ready for the next place. What's that?
Well, I hesitate to say that I have other ideas. Right now, I'm completely married to Overnight Beauty, but there are, I would love to be a serial entrepreneur, but then there's part of me that just wants to slow down. And so I have actually recently said this out loud that I love interior design. I love all things furniture. I would love to have like a small store, open up at 11, go to yoga, meditate before I go and open the store, and just live a more peaceful, calm daily life. So
I get an idea. You have, since it's going to be a store, have it be like very cozy, but different things. So you open it where you can invite people in. You have like beautiful rugs or cozy area where you offer tea and soft music. Everyone can meditate, and then, okay, now walk around and shop and decide how you, what you need for me to help design your home.
I love that. I love that. Great idea. Stolen.
We'll work together on it.
I will call you. Absolutely.
Perfect. Well, Ruthie, thank you so much. It was so great. As we always say, when we're at the summits, we get to know each other a little bit personally, but it's mostly all about the marketing, whereas I love getting to know this side of you. So I really appreciate it.
No, thank you. I appreciate you having me. So great to spend more time with you. Thanks again.
Yeah. And thank you for watching. And as I always say, if you have any recommendations, any women brand marketers who you would love to learn more about, I would love to know them, or ones that you know about and you just want to share them with the world. Please let me know and I will do my best. So thank you. And again, Ruthie, thanks.
Thank you.